Hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and this week's video is going to be the finalization, I think, of the Peter Wright post-vise restoration. I apologize for it taking so long to get this project completed, but been dealing with a lot of personal items in my life. As some of you have heard me mention before, my 93-year-old mother lived right up the road up here from me. She was 93, she turned 94 first of last month. But during this video series, she fell, broke her arm in two places, or broke both bones in her left arm. Went through a series of seriously declining health, and passed away a couple weeks ago. But that's been kind of all-consuming as far as my time's concerned, and that's why I haven't really been able to get out here and make the videos. I was doing what I felt like I needed to do, and looking after her, being with her. But on a high note, I would like to tell you, I did mention, I think, in the first part of this video, in the first part of this series, that I was dedicating this video series to a friend of mine who donated this Peter Wright vise to an auction that I bought this from, a benefit auction for the future farmers of America. My friend Rex, I mentioned that he was having some heart issues. I'm happy to report that he's had basically a screen put in to prevent any blood clots from passing through his body. But more importantly, he had a heart valve that was leaking back 60% of what it was pumping was leaking back. He's had that fixed, and he is doing very, very good. I'm very pleased to announce that Rex is doing much better. His color's much better, and when you can get oxygen through your system via blood, of course, it makes you feel better all over. So let's look at what we're going to take care of in this video today. Today what we're going to do is look at the mounting bracket that we made in the last video. We need to put some slots in it and just round it off, dress it up a little bit. Also, we'll need to make a keyed wedge and also a locking wedge or a tapered wedge. And then finally, we're going to make the spring. A lot of you have indicated an interest in the spring, how we're going to do that. So if you follow my channel, you saw that I snuck a video in during this restoration of actually building a forge, and that's what we're going to use to forge this spring and get it to shape to fit on the vise. So let's go through these pieces, and then we'll do a recap at the end. Okay, we got just a little more work to do on the mounting collar that we didn't finish up in the previous video. I need to mill some slots in both sides of the arms on here. Those slots will match up with the slot in the mounting bracket. Now, the relationship to the position of these slots to this, I think will be much easier to show you after I get them milled than it would be to try to explain to you how I come up with that position. But I've got it set up in the mill vise now. I've got a parallel under it just to get it up high enough. Got it good and tight, I hope. Got a spacer block in this end down here, just a piece of scrap. And then got a cant twist clamp on the end. I've got it in the center on the y-axis, and I've got a couple of punch marks and print or dimensions set on my DRO as well. So we're going to try this. Just going to take it slow and easy. This spacer block I got under here is a sacrificial block, just a piece of aluminum. This is obviously using some 21st century machinery on probably a 19th century piece of equipment. As I said in the previous video, I'm definitely not a blacksmith and wouldn't have the tools to try to forge this slot anyhow. But we're getting there. All right, I'm sure I'm through, but I'm going to take one more cut down into that sacrificial piece, just to be sure. Now, to use the same dimensions on the DRO, when I set this in, I use a stop at the end down here. Bring this back to my center and then lock the Y. All right, I think we're through, but again, I'm going to go one more into the sacrificial piece. Yeah, it's kicking out aluminum now. All right, I think the only thing that's left to do with this collar now is to round off these corners over here a little bit. I'll do that off camera on the surface grinder. Then our next project will be to come back and cut the two wedges that will wedge this up tight, use this collar to wedge the vise tight with the mount. Okay, so what we just finished fabricating and milling the slots in is this mounting collar here, or shackle. What I'm going to work on next is these two wedges. I'm going to use another piece of this rusty new old stock that I showed you that I found that I made this out of. This is 1.5 inches thick, or 1.5 inches wide, 1/4 inch thick. What I want to do is take it down first to make this this keyed wedge. I want to take this down to 1 inch. So I've got the slitting saw in there now. Let's see, I probably need to slow it down. And we're going to take about 1/2 inch off of this. I'm going to run a little coolant on this at the same time. All right, that's got that piece cut. Now what I want to do is come in about 1/2 inch from each end and take out all the material in between for at least a 1/2 inch down. So I need to change some tools over and probably get this on a higher parallel. So I'll be right back. All right, the piece we just slit is going to be for this wedge right here. And let's see, I keep forgetting what the term for it's called. A keyed wedge. We got it cut to width desired, about an inch wide. We're dealing with 3 inches long. And now I'm going to take this notch right here out. And again, I'm going to do it with a 21st century milling machine. Got the piece on a little higher parallel now. And I've got a 1/2 inch roughing end mill in there. I'm going to try that and see how I get along with it. I've got my lengths marked, or my spacing marked, and my depth. I'm going to zero out the DRO though for depth. And I'll get a little more depth, and then we'll get the width set up to just to my scribe mark will be good enough. All right. I'm going to set a 0 on the x-axis right there, and actually lock the x-axis down, and just keep working my way down to a 1/2 inch. After we get that done on both ends, then we'll come out and get the middle. All right, that's 500 thousandths deep right there. Now I'm going to lock the Y, and I'm going to see how well that works. Taking that full depth real slow. All right, that's all that took. I'm going to do some deburring on this piece. Carry it over to the belt sander, round these corners up a little bit, and give it a test fit. Then we'll be ready to do the second wedge, which will be this wedge right here. I've got another piece of this rusted and pitted new old stock that we're going to make the locking wedge out of. And on one end I need it to be a 1/2 inch, and this end about 3/4 of an inch. So I've just scribed a line on there. This angle is nowhere near critical enough that needs a angle plate or sign bar or anything like that. I'm just going to tap this end down until that line is parallel. All right, that line is parallel with the parallel laid on its side now. So all this up here is waste material. We're going to do the same thing we did before, just use the 1/2 inch roughing end mill. But I'm not going to try to take the full bite at a time, since this down here will be, let's see, that will be a 3/4 of an inch there. So. And take about 60 thousandths at a time. I'm going to keep on with this process. As I get closer to the actual scribe line, I'll double check it, be sure the piece hasn't moved in the vise. But I'll bring you back when we get a little closer. All right, I think we're ready to make our last pass. Get the coolant back over here now. All right, deburr this, carry the camera over to the vise. I actually got it back in the Wilton vise again, got it set up and semi-reassembled. I'm going to deburr this, and I'll carry you over there and show you the logic and the way these wedges work. But I've got the post vise mounted in the Wilton, and I've got the collar that we made. I've actually got it wedged in here now with just a piece of scrap material. I've got a spacer in there that will be the thickness of the spring. These are the slots we cut in. Now, everything that you're going to see here is kind of in reverse as far as what's tightening on what. But keep in mind, in the final situation, this will be mounted solid on a stand of some type. This collar will slide over it. Now, the slot in this piece is way back here, a ½ inch beyond where that slot is. This is what I was saying earlier when I was milling those slots. I thought it would be easier to show you than try to explain before. If I put the two slots directly in line with each other, the wedges wouldn't do anything. As it is now, with the end of this back behind that, back behind the slot in the collar, when this is mounted solid, putting these wedges in, this is the keyed wedge, and it's simply keyed to keep it from losing out, falling out. And looks like I may have to squeeze that together just a little bit. Stand by. When I tighten this block down here to hold everything in place, it kind of opened that out just a little bit. So now the keyed wedge is in. Then this tapered wedge, locking wedge, see, nothing is tight yet. This locking wedge will go in and be driven in. And then that will make this as rigid as feasibly possible with the vise. All this tight. The spring will be wedged in there, just like what we're looking for, and everything tight and in place. So I think we're done now with the mounting system. I believe it's probably time. I'm going to disassemble this, carry the leg part over to the press, and take some of the bends out of the legs. I'm not going to try to film that, video that, because all I'm going to do is just keep laying it around in there like I did the handle here until I got it reasonably straight. But then I'll bring you back when we get ready to start working on this spring. All right, to make the spring for this post vise, I was going to make it out of this piece of leaf spring. This is actually from a golf cart, piece of a golf cart leaf spring. I was going to make it out of it, but I got to watching a few videos on YouTube, Black Bear Forge one in particular, and John there says the best thing to make these springs out of is just simple mild steel. So I'm going to use another piece of that we use to make this bracket right here with. But the first thing I want to do or first thing I did was make a pattern. This is just a piece of thin sheet metal. And what I did was fold a 90 up here at the top. That's what will be hooked into the, of course, this piece. And then I just kind of kept forming it around until I've got a shape that would fit in here with the vise opened up. I've got it at about, let's see, about a 3-inch opening in there now, which I think is plenty big. I doubt I'll ever have to hold anything any wider than that. if I do, it'll go on out another inch. I may just have to pull this by hand. But I've got a pattern folded up or bent up out of this sheet metal. And again, we're going to take a piece of mild steel, some of that new old stock that's got plenty of patina to it, rust. We're going to carry it over to the forge, heat it up, and bend it. See if I can do a little better job of applying the heat and bending it than I did on this piece. So I'll meet you over at the forge. I'm probably not going to narrate a lot of that simply because I'm just heating up a piece of steel and beating the crap out of it. All right, folks, that was my, other than just firing up that forge when I built it with some charcoal, that was the first time using it. And I've got a lot to learn about it and a lot to learn about forging, but I'm very pleased with the way this turned out. During the process, I realized that the width of my track anvil here was about 3/8 narrower than what the offset was on this. So that's when I stopped trying to use this as a guide and just held this up with the tongs and kept working it until I got that. Now back in the previous video when I made, or might have been in the first video, when I made this piece, the mounting bracket collar, I also made this little, somewhat of a U-shaped piece here. And what that's going to do, this is going to mount up on the vise. This will be on the stationary jaw. This will be pushing against the movable jaw. I'm going to rivet this onto here, this cup, or U-shaped, just to keep this piece from wandering off. I've looked at several videos online, several pictures online of these vices, and most of them have some means of holding that in place. So I've got a 7/16 rivet here, and I'm going to try peening this cold. 7/16 shouldn't have any trouble peening it over. Let me show you what I did on this. After boring the 7/16 hole, I did a little countersink in there with a looks like probably a 1/2 inch bit, just to give some place for this peening to go. In this case, I'm not interested in trying to protect the head of the rivet. So I'm just setting it flat on the anvil. All right. So it's riveted in there now. Should be there forever. I'm going to go back over there, set the camera up in front of the Wilton vise that I got the post vise mounted into, and we're going to put all these pieces together and do a quick recap on this restoration project. All right, I've got the stationary part of our post vise now, just mounted in the Wilton here, just to help hold it steady. First thing we're going to do is mount the spring and the mounting bracket. It's going to go up here like this. And put the tapered wedge in from this side just so I can see it. All right, I can see I'm going to have to put a little more taper on that wedge, but this will be fine for this step right here anyhow. Remember, this will be mounted to our vise mount when we get that built. So now let's put the movable jaw in, using this, of course, this hand forged pin or bolt that we were able to salvage. And the square nut that we got off an old piece of farm equipment here locally. All right, let's see what we got. See, we're getting spring action already. Oil can. Put a little oil on this rubbing surface in here. Let's see if the spring keeps it pressure on it now. And it is. Very pleased with that up to, let's see, it kept pressure to about 2.8 inches. I may pull that out just a little bit more, but I think that's fine. Folks, I'm pretty well satisfied with this. We were able to build our thrust washer, straighten out our pin here or our handle, straighten out the leg down here that's off camera right now, make our mounting bracket, of course clean up the threads on the lead screw here, make our 2 wedges, make the spring. I believe we're going to call this recap, or this reconditioning, rebuilt, refurbish. I believe we're going to call it complete. Now I am going to make a mount for this, a stand for it, but that's going to be in a little later video. I got a couple other projects I need to catch up on, But for right now, I think we're going to call this one complete. So thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through this long period of getting this project done. I'll see you in the next video.